Angela Donnelly, Martin Campos Davis, and Matt Newell Ching. And whoever wants to go first, please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair Sanchez, Vice Chair Bynum, Vice Chair Springer, members of the committee. My name is Angela Donnelly. I'm from Bend, but now live in Portland. I'm here in support of HB 4065. Some of you may know me for my time as Chief of Staff to one of our fabulous state senators or as Policy Director for a county commissioner. I spent 7 years working in government and helping constituents access needed resources. Before this work, I was a social worker and spent 8 years working with foster youth and adjudicated youth to access needed resources in their local communities. I tell you this because it shows that I have the skills and knowledge to navigate our systems, including our government departments, and am qualified to help people connect with resources. With that said, all my experience has not helped me in navigating our legal system to help my mom, who has had a suspended license for 25 years. At the age of 9, my stepfather had an aneurysm and ended up dying within a few weeks of his stroke. When his stroke happened in our home, he was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, my mother following distraught behind him in her car. On her way to the hospital, she got pulled over and got a speeding ticket. This was the first ticket she ever had. Until then, she had a clean driving record. Within 2 weeks, my stepfather had died, the love of my mom's life, the father to my baby brother, the owner of the business that my mom worked for, and the main provider for my family was gone. This, of course, drove my mom into a deep depression and was a struggle for all of us. The last thing on her mind at this time was her speeding ticket, and honestly, I don't think she even remembered that she got one. Death and depression are not something that you snap back from quickly or sometimes ever, and while she dealt with this, she also had 4 young kids to care for. She had to find a job, provide for our basic needs, get us to school, other activities, provide support for her kids who were struggling with this death, all while dealing with her own heartache. So we soon lost our home, jumped from family members to friend's house, trying to keep afloat. During this time, my mom had to continue driving because she had to continue to survive. We lived in Bend, which in the 90s was a small town, still with barely any public transportation. At that time, there was none. And in the winter, the snow would pile up and it was unwalkable. When you live in a small town, the police quickly know who you are. They always knew my mom's car and that she had no license. So she regularly got pulled over, got a ticket, more fines, more time added onto her suspension. Her car usually was impounded. We were left on the side of the road, day or night, to try to find a ride home. This didn't deter her from driving. She had to survive and she had to take care of her kids. So as you can imagine, the fees piled up to the point where she threw her hands up and just decided there was no way she could ever pay it. So as a child, I went through this experience with my mom. I was often subject to the trauma that comes from interactions with our system. I still to this day get sweaty palms when a cop pulls up behind me. I snap back to that childhood fear every time of being pulled over, hearing the police treat my mom with absolute disregard and shaming her, and forcing us out of the car so they can tow it and drive away without a care for our well-being. It's real and it happens every day to those of us who are not wealthy enough to pay simple fines and fees. Having a parent with a suspended license made my life much harder. My mom didn't want to drive unless necessary, so I could barely make it to regular school functions. I had no one to legally teach me how to drive. I couldn't use my mom's car to take my driving test or drive with her in the passenger seat so that I could learn. I ended up waiting for years to get my license because of this. So to this day, my mom still has a suspended license. We've spent almost a year trying to navigate the court system to see if they can work with us on getting her license back. To be clear, she still cannot do this on her own. I've been assisting her along the way, and I'll be the one to pay back her fines. Without someone like me on her side, she would never be able to pay the money she owes and get her license back. But that doesn't mean she's not going to have to drive for the rest of her life. So just recently, my mom was really excited that she may be able to get her license back, and she decided to try and ride a bike to and from work, just, to make sure she doesn't get in trouble. My 56-year-old mom is riding her bike to and from work in Bend in the winter at nighttime. A month ago, she was on her way home and another person was riding their bike with something large strapped to the back, and that hit my mom, and it hit her, threw her off her bike. So my 56-year-old mom got thrown off her bike, broke her rib, and the whole side of her body was bruised. So I just want to be clear here that my mom's not been unsafe. She has not done anything in a car that has harmed another person. Suspending her license hasn't made a bad driver safer. She simply couldn't pay a fine she got 25 years ago and has been in this system that's designed to keep those in poverty and poverty since. I know that one argument against this bill is that courts may lose revenue, and as I began to look at this issue from a policy perspective, it's become clear how inappropriate it is for a court system to fund itself off the fines they impose on people. Research has shown that not only do fines and fees not work for rehabilitation and improving safety, but using these fees to finance a court system is a complete conflict of interest. I hope that when you decide to vote on this bill, you consider how detrimental imposing even the smallest fine can be on a family who's barely meeting their basic needs and not on the need to fund our government. Thank you for your time, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Sanchez, Vice Chair Bynum, and Vice Chair Springer. My name is Martin Campos Davis, and I'm the Executive Director for Oregon Human Development Corporation.